Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Saturday, 24th May 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. United States Ambassador Warren Stevens met with Prime Minister Keir Starmer after President Donald Trump's call for the UK to prioritize oil drilling and halt wind power projects. Separately, President Trump threatened the European Union with a 50% tariff on goods amid stalled negotiations. The US has also shifted its position, joining the G7 in condemning Russia's war on Ukraine. Russia reaffirmed its commitment to the Istanbul agreements with Ukraine, even as Russian forces launched drone and missile attacks on Kyiv. President Vladimir Putin announced plans to increase Russian arms export. Russia dismissed the Vatican as a possible location for peace talks with Ukraine, calling it vulgar. Simultaneously, Russia and Ukraine exchanged prisoners, each returning 307 individuals. Rosneft has gained control of Russia's largest rare earth deposit. Russia's frozen assets, according to the G7 nations, will remain inaccessible until full compensation is given to Ukraine. Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, was the target of a Russian drone and missile attack. Regardless, Russia reiterated its commitment to the Istanbul agreements with Ukraine. A prisoner exchange between Russia and Ukraine led to the return of 307 individuals from each side. Following the attacks on Kyiv, President Zelensky called for new sanctions against Russia. The G7 nations have collectively decided that Russia's frozen assets will remain inaccessible until Ukraine receives full compensation. United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer held a meeting with U.S. Ambassador Warren Stevens following President Donald Trump's urging of the UK to concentrate on oil drilling and abandon wind power projects. European Union President Donald Trump threatened the European Union with a 50% tariff on goods due to stalled negotiations between the US and the US. G7 nations, including the US, condemned Russia's war on Ukraine. The G7 has collectively decided that Russia's frozen assets will remain inaccessible until full compensation is provided to Ukraine for damages incurred. China is intensifying its regulatory oversight across various sectors. The Internet watchdog is clamping down on false financial claims and stock promotions online, tightening control over platforms, spreading financial misinformation. New regulations are being drafted to assist Chinese tech companies listing overseas. NVIDIA is developing a modified, less powerful Blackwell AI chip for the Chinese market to comply with U.S. export restrictions, with mass production targeted for June. China is also grappling with rising youth unemployment, which has surpassed 15%. This economic factor could influence the cryptocurrency market in 2025. Efforts are ongoing to promote the Chinese yuan as a globally recognized currency amid growing skepticism about the U.S. dollar's stability. Radisson Hotel is expanding its presence in Shanghai, signaling continued foreign investment in the region. Turning to the United States, former President Trump has proposed tariffs on iPhones. However, the efficacy of these tariffs in relocating production to the U.S. is uncertain, given that most Apple products already benefit from tariff exemptions. In Indonesia, China and Indonesia have committed to fostering true multilateralism, according to a statement by China's premier. This commitment suggests closer collaboration between the two countries on the international stage. Japan is working towards a tariff agreement with the United States in advance of the G7 summit, scheduled for June. Super-long bond yields in Japan are approaching record highs, influenced by both inflation and concerns about fiscal stability. Tourism in Japan has seen a decline, reportedly triggered by rumors of a significant earthquake predicted in a manga. Financial authorities in Japan have met to discuss the consequences of rising bond yields in both the US and Japan. President Trump has now supported the $14 billion acquisition of US steel by Japan's Nippon Steel, overturning objections from the United Steelworkers Union related to national security, and celebrating the deal. Turning to the United States, President Trump has stated that U.S. Steel will keep its headquarters in Pittsburgh through its collaboration with Japan's Nippon Steel, which is acquiring the company. The $14 billion deal secured President Trump's approval, resolving earlier worries voiced by the United Steelworkers Union concerning national security implication. Financial authorities met to analyze the effects of the increase in bond yields in both the US and Japan. India's economy is navigating turbulent waters as gold prices climb amid global uncertainty regarding potential US tariffs on the EU. Foreign portfolio investors have pulled out YOG for 4,784.32 crore from the stock market this week, contributing to a total withdrawal of Rs 4,800 crore due to international market volatility. NTPC, however, has announced profit growth, bolstered by increased power generation. The early arrival of the monsoon season promises a favorable outlook for agriculture. The NSE IPO awaits SEBI approval. Bank of America Corp acquired shares in the Colombia India consumer ETF. Shifting to international affairs, Bangladesh has cancelled a $21 meal deal with India's Grazi firm. Domestically, Shashi Tharoor has voiced criticism of the Kerala government's aid to Turkey, suggesting it is misdirected. South Korea is currently navigating a complex landscape of economic and social challenges as its presidential candidates recently held their first debate, largely centered on the nation's pressing economic issues. Despite headwinds faced by listed companies, venture investment remains strong, approaching its second highest level. The stock market, however, has shown little movement, remaining virtually unchanged. Kim of the People Power Party, PPP, is planning a meeting with former President Park ahead of the elections. Overseas adoptions are also under intense scrutiny, particularly following the reunion of a South Korean mother and her daughter, abducted 44 years ago, who is now suing the government for alleged illegal adoption practices. A report from the Low Birth Rate Committee and the Prime Minister's office underscores the decreasing marriage rates, exacerbating the country's low birth rate problem. Further complicating matters, South Korea has expressed its concerns over China's declaration of a no-sail zone in areas where maritime boundaries are contested. Australia is experiencing significant economic shifts and regulatory changes. The country is benefiting from US-China trade tensions, particularly with Australian beef becoming a key commodity in the Shanghai market. Trade with China is also playing a role in managing domestic inflation through the availability of affordable online goods. Investment is on the rise, with Canadian investors increasingly targeting Australian mining and energy stocks. In domestic financial news, over 6.5 million Australians have engaged with digital assets, leading to a legal landmark where an Australian judge classified Bitcoin as equivalent to cash. The regulatory environment is adapting with the introduction of a new mandatory merger control regime. Culturally, a new finance and production entity will support collaborative feature film projects between Australia and India, strengthening international ties in the film industry. Turning to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is facing challenges related to foreign interference. Parliament is debating measures to counter foreign meddling in elections, particularly concerning alleged interference by China. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSS, has been under scrutiny regarding its handling of intelligence related to these activities. Economically, Canada's housing market is showing signs of cooling, with rising interest rates impacting affordability. Furthermore, discussions continue regarding the modernization of the Columbia River Treaty, with the United States focusing on water management and power generation. In the United States, the political climate remains charged in the lead-up to the presidential election. Debates are ongoing regarding economic policy, with a focus on inflation and job creation. The Federal Reserve is closely monitoring economic data to determine the future course of interest rate adjustments. Legal challenges continue regarding voting rights and election procedures, particularly in several key swing states. Furthermore, tensions persist on the international stage, with the U.S. government addressing conflicts in Eastern Europe and the Middle East through diplomatic and economic measures. Ukraine remains a focal point as conflict with Russia escalates. Kyiv endured a significant Russian assault, leaving 15 people injured. Retaliating, Ukraine has increased its drone strikes aiming at Russian arms production facilities and airports. These overnight drone attacks caused several Moscow airports to suspend operations temporarily. Amidst the fighting, Ukraine and Russia completed a large-scale prisoner exchange, an event lauded by President Trump. Finland is now set to supply ammunition to Ukraine. The funding for this aid will come from seized Russian assets. The threat of tariffs by President Donald Trump sent ripples through global markets, causing a noticeable dip in both European and Wall Street stock indices. This downturn particularly affected tech giants like Apple and resulted in a 3% drop in the European Autos Index. Across the Atlantic, the European Union braces for potential economic fallout, with Ireland facing the most significant risk due to its extensive trade relationship with the United States. Saudi Arabia has seen a significant boost in female workforce participation, effectively doubling the proportion of working women since 2015, despite existing obstacles. Simultaneously, the nation's Public Investment Fund, PIF, is broadening its global footprint, inaugurating a new office in Paris, with intentions to double European investments. Domestically, the PIF is also active, launching investment accelerators focused on the handicraft sector. The e-pharmacy market in Saudi Arabia is also expected to reach USD 2.1 billion by 2030, fueled by the growth of digital health programs. WHAM and Amazon are similarly benefiting from investments with origins in Saudi Arabia. South Africa is poised to approve Starlink, Elon Musk's satellite internet service, pending a regulatory amendment. This change would waive the equity requirement for Black South Africans to own shares in the company to secure a license. Bolstering the economy, South African assets are gaining from increased gold prices. Investec, a financial firm based in South Africa, will initiate a share buyback program valued at $139 million. Reassuring news emerged from a South African gold mine, where all workers trapped underground after an accident have been rescued. Canada remains a top destination for Americans seeking relocation, a survey revealed. Bank of Canada Governor Macron views potential U.S. tariffs as a significant economic challenge. Costa Caustic has become a partner at Denton's Montreal office, adding to their legal expertise. After a period of gains, the TX's weekly winning streak ended as investors opted to secure profits. Asian currencies are expected to strengthen against the US dollar long-term. Jefferies attributes this to higher gross national savings compared to G7 countries. This economic activity is reflected in Asian stock gains. Oil prices decreased as Treasury yields eased. Alibaba's chair advised Asian firms to seek growth outside the United States. Pakistan's economy is under pressure, even after receiving over $16 in foreign loans and grants. Simultaneously, Alibaba is introducing online logistics services tailored for Pakistani exporters. In currency news, the Australian dollar has weakened against the Pakistani rupee. Turning to Vietnam, the nation has indicated a willingness to meet tariff demands from a potential Trump administration. However, a U.S.-Vietnam trade deal faces hurdles, primarily due to China's significant role in supplying fabrics, 60%, to Vietnamese garment factories. In France, a substantial power outage disrupted southeastern regions, impacting both traffic and the concluding day of the Cannes Film Festival. Police are investigating potential arson as a cause of the outage, particularly concerning its impact on the film festival. Italy may see its credit rating upgraded by Moody's from just above junk status, reflecting positive economic progress under Prime Minister Meloni. Switching to Brazil, Rio Alto is engaging with debt restructuring advisors to manage its financial obligations. In other business news, JBS shareholders have approved a dual listing of the company's shares in both the US and Brazil. The United States is seeing former President Donald Trump threatening a 50% tariff on imports from the European Union. He also mentioned a 25% tariff on Apple products, citing a standstill in trade negotiation. These policies are leading Switzerland to reconsider its support mechanisms for farmers. Across the Atlantic, the European Union is reacting to Trump's potential tariffs. Croatian stocks experienced a decline following the threat of a 50% tariff. Meanwhile, in Ireland, Tourism Ireland's Asia Sales Blitz is connecting Irish travel industry leaders with travel professionals from China and South Korea, aiming to stimulate tourism growth. On the geopolitical front, Myanmar and Russia conducted bilateral discussions in Moscow, emphasizing cooperation in the realm of biosecurity. Finland is set to provide ammunition to Ukraine using funds generated from frozen Russian assets. The Philippines sees SMIC recognized for its exemplary corporate governance practices. In South America, Chile's finance chief is actively working to unlock billions in new investment opportunities. Sweden is seeing a new AI venture being launched through a collaboration between NVIDIA and Wallenberg businesses. Finally, Singapore is issuing cautionary statements regarding a possible upcoming recession. And that's a wrap for today's news. Because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.